fans, Scrapper Names fans, how are we all? So I'm back with my first process video for our Arty Fun Friday. So each Friday coming in and doing an art journal page or potentially some other sort of off the page kind of creation. So today is my art journal. As you can see there, that background I was just showing you has got that pink scripty kind of font that I've done through a stencil using texture paste. And then the sort of chevron look with the blue acrylic paint there. This was done like ages ago when I first started doing my art journal. First got this months and months and months ago. So I kind of take the inky quill approach with getting two projects out of one mess kind of thing. So when I've done some mixed media, if I've got a bit left over, I'll chuck it in my art journal to have a pre-prepared page. So today I'm using one of these very first, actually this is one of the first few pages in my art journal that I had done. So I'm using my Distress Oxides there through a new Kaiser Craft stencil I have there. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do actually at first, but I thought I want to give the Distress Oxides a go again. And originally what I'd done was try to sort of stamp, like push the ink pad straight onto the stencil. It didn't work. So I've ended up grabbing the ink dauber and sort of pushing it through the stencil in patches that way. Now at first, in looking at this actually on the screen here, those butterflies look really good, or look better than I thought they did, compared to when I actually pulled the stencil up when I did this earlier today actually. This is how new this is. I'm actually on the ball with these process videos. So yeah, I was a bit sort of like, oh, you know, but then I thought, oh, it's an art journal page, so just go with it. I can cover it up with stuff. I can just roll with it. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's just my art journal page, me testing out some things and just giving it a whirl. So yeah, the reason why I got my art journal page, art journal originally, was to try out some mixed media techniques that it wouldn't matter if I messed it up or buggered it up in any way. You know, it wasn't going on a layout, it wasn't going in an album. It's just basically for me to look at. So, and if I share it with you guys. So it didn't, that's its sole purpose, is for me to try out some different things as well as play around. And it is a bit personal, so I have some pages in here that have been, I guess you could say, aimed at me to either make, you know, kind of boost the self-esteem a little bit, I guess you could say, which you would have seen some probably previously. I've done some videos like that. So yeah, anyway, so what I've done is just continued dabbing those through. I mixed up the colours. I didn't mind. I wanted to blend them through together, the pink and the blue at times, and then basically just trying to clean off the excess a little bit by just stamping them around my page is what I've just done then. I did have to wash them out, like the double sponges out, just so you know. Didn't get it all off, and I could have probably just left it there, let it dry, and see what happens next time. But I just didn't want to take the chance that they would wreck the daubers for the next project. So then I decided to come in, and my next layer is going to be some stamping. So first off was that texture paste that was already there, and the chevrons, the acrylic paint. Now I've gone through with the Distress Oxides, and now I'm going to come in with some stamping. I wasn't sure where I was going with this page, sort of what sort of theme I had in my head. I knew I wanted to use my new stencil and give it a whirl, so I did, and then it's just sort of evolved from there. So grabbed the stamp set that is part of the Bohemian Dream Cocoa Vanilla Studio collection from a few months back, and I'm stamping out, as you can see, a nice image of a bird. I haven't actually used this particular stamp, as in the bird one, off this set, so this was the first time being used, hence why I think the first sort of image wasn't great. So I saved you the hassle of watching me do all of that. And now I'm just going through with another bit from this stamp set, which is kind of like, as you can see there, it's kind of like a, I don't know, I'm using it as a branch. Let's just go with that. I'm not really sure what you would call it. It's gone from my head. Yeah, so what I've decided, I'm going with the bird theme, the flowers, the tree, naturey kind of theme, I think, to this page as such. So yes, I'm using this stamp as a bit of a perch for the bird to sit on, if that makes sense. It'll all make sense in the end once you see what I've created. So what am I doing? Oh, I've got some dark green acrylic paint. I was going to use one of the Dilutions paints, but it was a bit like it's very, very bright. And then when I did this, started painting with this one, I was like, oh gosh, it's really, really dark. I was a bit sort of like, I'm not sure about this. But I just went with it, and I thought, well, you know, I can play with it later, and it doesn't really matter. No one's, you know, no one's judging. It's all good. So I decided to sort of just mock up my own tree. Now, I am not a drawer or that sort of arty kind of person by nature by any means. Scrapbooking and this sort of stuff is sort of the extent, hence why the art journal is for me to play in, to test out all these new fandangled techniques. So, yes, so just a disclaimer there that obviously drawing is not my thing. But you know what? Whatever. It's an art journal page again, and it's, yeah. So, yeah, so I'm just now painting, using this green paint to paint in, as you can see, basically like a tree. So I've painted the sort of trunk of the tree, and now I'm sort of trying to paint the branches for the birds to sort of sit on and roll with, I guess. Trying to connect the two pages together as well, so there was some sort of consistency across the two, so it didn't just sort of look like two pages sort of standing alone with some similarities. I decided that was the best way to do that, by joining the trees together, the branches and stuff that way. So just touching them up. I did contemplate adding some white paint to the green to lighten it up a little bit initially, but then I sort of changed my mind and thought I'll just see how it goes. As I said, I was a bit like, it's a bit too dark, but in the end it does work. It does work. Right, just touching up those bits on the tree. And the brush I'm using here is nothing special. I think it came in a set of gelatos I brought. So, yeah. So it's nothing in particular. I just wanted a thin brush. It was the best one I had there. Now, coming back in with some tissue paper this time. I wanted to do something across the top. It sort of just, to me, it looked like it was sort of all just floating around up there. So I've decided to use the blue tissue paper here as representing the sky, basically. So the trees, the birds, skies, all those sorts of things. I also wanted it to add a little bit of different sort of ruffledy texture to the page, which somewhat does. And I'm just using a clear gel medium to use basically like an adhesive. It adds a bit of gloss to the over the top of the tissue paper, as well as adhering it to the page. So yeah, and I'm just sort of randomly just ripping bits and smushing it down with the gel medium and going from there. As I said, it needed something to ground it, so, or from the top of the page, I thought. So this was perfect. I knew I wanted something to represent, I guess, the sky. And having sat back and had a bit of a thought while that paint dried, and looking around in my craft space, and yeah, saw I had some blue tissue paper just kicking about, so that's what I decided to go with. Yeah, so it worked quite well, and the page is still sitting open on my desk, and nothing's come up, like as in the tissue paper hasn't come unstuck or anything like that. It's all gone really well. So just in case you were wondering, it did work quite well. And I was making sure, the only thing I'd made sure of with this is I didn't want it to cover over the birds too much. I just wanted it to come down to near the birds sort of level, but not clash with them, if that makes sense. Just going through here, I realised I probably had too much gel medium, so just daubing up a little bit, soaking up a little bit, and adding just a little bit more. It's been a little while since I've used the gel medium as a bit of an adhesive in my art journal. I was a bit apprehensive. It's one thing I'm not always sure how to use. And yeah, it worked quite well. So I was really pleased. And all in all, looking at the page, to me, when I sat here and was doing it this afternoon, I sort of got to this point when I don't know if I'm really thinking I wanted to share this with you. I wasn't sure it was too, I don't know, I just sort of thought, and here's the tapping fingers, I did think I was just missing something, and then Heidi Swap Colour Shine comes to the rescue in gold. Now I did try this through this mini Kaiser stencil. It did and didn't work. I have to admit I needed to be patient to let it dry, and you can see it up close. You can see the intricate little patterns on the page from the stencil, not like clearly as if you would if you were putting texture paste in it, but it has turned out, and I have to admit the gold was a really good choice in the end, just to add a bit of sparkle to the page, add a little bit more brightness, I guess, not necessarily colour, but just a contrasting sort of colour from that blue and the dark and things like that, colours on the page and the dark stamping, and the way it comes across the dark green paint has really sort of illuminated it quite well. Yeah, so I am really pleased with it now. Originally I wasn't so much. Yeah, but I'll have some close-ups of the page in a sec at the end of the video for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you again over the weekend, I guess, with a plan with me video. See you later, guys. Have a good scrappy weekend. Bye.